Guy Code with Rena Osware. Welcome to another episode of The Guy Code, and on this episode we're going to be talking about greatest dad ever with a friend of mine called Jeremy Cecil. Jeremy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, The Guy Code is happy to have you. So we're going to be talking about greatest dad ever on this episode. So you're a father right now?
Yes, I am.
Of a son, daughter?
I have a son. He's three years old now.
I'm sure you must be really proud.
It's a great blessing to have him in my life, but it hasn't always been sun and roses, if I could say it that way.
So talking about that, let's just get into it.
Right.
Guy Code with Rena Osware. When you found out you're going to be a dad, what was your first reaction? Take us to that moment when you got news that Jeremy is going to be a dad.
Wow. I think the first thing I did was just sit down and look back in my life and just think about, am I ready for this? I just took a moment of silence, 5 minutes, when my girlfriend told me, and just thinking about my current situation or the situation I was in back then, and just trying to figure out, is this really what I'm meant to do with my life? Is this it now? I'm finally a parent. You know, I know myself, and back then I wasn't really ready for that, but things change over time, and yeah, it was a great surprise for me.
Talk about a great surprise, and according to certain research, most people say that you can never really be prepared for parenthood.
Right.
No matter how many books you read, seminars you go to, whatever guidance, you can never really be prepared for parenthood.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think you're ever ready for it or to be a parent, but you can read up on certain literature, or you can take advice from certain people that have been there before, and they can guide you to take the easiest path, or the path of least resistance to being a parent. Yeah. Guy Code with Rena Osware.
So talking about, you said that it was a great surprise for you, and you took about 5 minutes to just contemplate. So after you took that break, who was the first person you called? Did you have anyone to seek guidance on, like, okay, I'm going to this new season in my life,
right,
I'm going to be a father? Did you call one person that you knew, okay, this person might have something that will help me, or do you have a guide?
In that moment, I didn't really think about calling anybody, because I had no idea. I had literally no clue what I was going to say or what I was going to ask. You know, there were so many ideas running in my mind, so it was really a blurry state of mind. But I did call my dad, for instance. I called him probably the next day or the 2 days after, just to make sure that this is it. You know, I don't want to tell him, I'm going to be a dad, or you're going to be a granddad, and it's not true. So I called him, and then I talked to my mom about it. She was the first person I talked to about it. But yeah, I didn't call anybody right away. I had to think about the situation first, and think about what I'm going to do next, and have a game plan before I talk to anybody about it.
So talking of your game plan and first figuring yourself out, did anyone else, did you have an actual guide through the process, just past the moment when you had something you could bring forth? Did someone else somehow fine-tune your plan and say, like, okay, what do you plan to do, and this is the best way to go about what you're trying to achieve?
I don't think there's really any best plan, because every situation is different. But along the way, in the last 3 years, I have been given some advice here and there on what to do, but there hasn't been anybody to sit me down and lecture me about, this is the way you're supposed to do it. because I think parenting, everybody has their own style of parenting, and my dad or my parents had their own style of parenting. My mom and dad have different styles, and I have a different style, so they can only give you general ideas or general advice about certain situations, and it's up to you how to interpret that and put it into action and execute.
So it's interesting you just said about different styles of parenting. So before you became a parent, of course you had seen different parents from, you said, your parents and probably other people you interacted with. What was your first impression on fatherhood before you became one? What is your impression on fatherhood from evaluating these different styles? What was your take on what it takes to be a dad?
I think not to dampen the role of a mother in the whole scheme of being a parent, but I think there's a lot more pressure on a dad or a father to really guide their child in the right direction, especially if you have a boy, a son.
Guy Code with Rena Osware.
You really have to set a good example and show him the right way of doing things, or how you're not supposed to do things, because I think today, especially today, we live in an era where a lot of men are really emasculated, and the whole essence of being a man or being a father has really been lost. And it's important to instill strong values and moral values when they're young. But yeah, it is what it is.
I think that's a good way to say it, because what you're saying is true, because there are many single mothers out there, many absentee fathers. So but you decided to take a different route, and as at Geico, we congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
And going to the next thing connected to that is that when you finally became a dad, you had this first impression before you became a dad. You had first impression of what fatherhood was before you became one. Now when you became one, you became a father, you held your child in your arms, and how did the parenthood, from that moment, how has your life changed? Like everything you do, how has it changed your life, knowing that I just created another human being who is dependent on me?
I think it's important to remember that that person is dependent on you. Not only your child, but also your spouse, to carry the other half of the responsibility. How has it affected my life until now?
Yeah.
Well, I think initially, for the first maybe few months, it didn't really hit me as hard that I'm a dad, I'm a father. But over time, you come back home, I go visit him, he comes over, and now we stay together. But in those first 2 years, it's a process of developing a shift in responsibility. It's a big responsibility to have somebody look up to you and to learn from you and to depend on you. So the shift in my mindset was, instead of thinking about myself all the time, I have to think about this other little person that I have, at home. Everything that I'm doing out there has to in some way benefit him or the family as a whole. I can't be thinking about myself. I can't be selfish like I used to be. So it's all about a shift in responsibility and making the right decisions that will ensure that your family is in a better situation in the future and in the current state.
So that's interesting. What you just said is that you changed how you thought. Like everything you did especially for your son, and you had your son in mind.
Right.
So for as far as probably even the people you used to interact with, did it change how you treat them? Did it change? Did you become generally more compassionate, generally more patient? Because sure, being a parent, you need a lot of patience,
right,
to train. Did it even affect your general work life, even social life?
I think it affected me in some way, but I wouldn't say it made me more compassionate. I think I'm still quite cold to some people, but
Guy Code with Rena Osware.
It definitely made me more patient, for sure. I'm more understanding of somebody's background, where they're coming from, or what kind of message they're trying to pass across. There's a lot of life lessons that can be taken from being a parent, and and putting them into action in the workplace, especially. For example, listening. You have to be able to be a good listener, how to respond well, how to tell somebody in a nice way that you don't like what they're doing. Just different ways and different methods of communicating with people, because you have to be really gentle, and you can't talk to your child like they're an adult. So you have to come up with different ways to explain things, and it's really helped me.
That's really good. So on the next thing is like, what is your description of the greatest dad ever? Because it's been 3 years in your experience. You've probably made some really great achievements. You've made some new discoveries. Probably you've made some blunders that you learned from. So right now, from that whole experience, your 3-year experience right now, to culminate it, what is your description of the greatest dad ever?
Well, based on all the experiences that I've had in the past 3 years, I think my definition of the greatest dad ever is to do the best you can, even if you fail in some instances. It's important to remember to pick yourself up, and I say yourself because there's nobody's gonna be there. As the man, nobody's gonna be there to comfort you. Maybe your spouse will be there the first couple of times, but after you've been knocked down, several times, nobody's gonna be there to dust your shoulder off and tell you it's gonna be okay. You have to be strong enough to pick yourself up and move forward, because people are depending on you. There's this little person depending on you. So I think my definition of the greatest dad ever is somebody who learns from their mistakes and gets up when they're taken down, and doesn't give up, and is relentless.
So lastly is, what would you advise to any man listening to us right now who is a father in waiting? Probably they're in a situation like you right now. Their girlfriend told them, you know what, we're going to have a family right now. And others who plan to raise children probably have dreams of, one day I'll have my own son, just like Jeremy. What would you advise them right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
First thing I would say is, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be scared, because nobody knows what to expect in the future. But you should just take it one step at a time, one day at a time. Talk to the people that are close to you, your mom, your dad, whoever it may be. Make sure you have those people close to you, because it's important to have a good support base, emotionally, mentally. You can't be prepared, but just try your best to stay in the moment and think about that specific moment, and in the future you're going to look back and think, why was I worrying so much about it? It's okay to worry, but things always fall into place when they need to be. So everything is going to be all right. If you're a father in waiting, that's fine. It was meant to happen. That's just God's plan, and it's a blessing. It's always a blessing to have a child in your life.
So thanks so much, Jeremy Cecile. So for every guy listening to us right now, you just heard from Jeremy Cecile, greatest dad ever. Good father is, you have to do it even when you're scared. Even when you think that, I don't think I'm ready. You can't be ready. You have to just take up responsibility as a man and keep moving. Even though, do it scared, do it afraid, but keep moving. Probably share with some people who might help you, but never, ever, ever avoid or abscond your responsibility. That's not being a real man. Being a real father is just take up responsibility, and you know what? That child of yours would be happy they had a dad like you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, man, you just have to grow some balls, man.
Guy Code with Rena Osware.
We're guys, we're men. You're supposed to just take it by the horns, grab the bull by the horns and just go at it. That's it.
Yeah, just man up and be a great dad. From Jeremy Cecile, the cold or somehow compassionate guy. This has been another episode of the Guy Code. Look out for the next episode in some time. This has been Guy Code. We are out.